22 years in corporate America, and I learned the hard way that your boss's daughter can steal your promotion right in front of 50 people and smile while she does it. Or so I thought. The name's Marcus Webb, 43 years old, been grinding in strategy and international business since before most of these kids knew what a P&L statement was. I've weathered the dot-com crash in 2000, the financial meltdown in 2008, and more corporate reorganizations than I care to count. 3 different CEOs, 4 different office locations, and enough late-night crisis calls to fill a small phone book. But this story isn't about surviving corporate America. It's about what happens when you stop playing defense and start playing chess. I was standing at the front of the team briefing room, certificate in hand, watching 50 colleagues clap as my manager announced my promotion to senior manager of strategy. 2 years overdue, but finally happening. Riley Ashford walked in during the applause like she owned the place. Not just the room, the whole company. Riley, 28 years old, VP of Strategy, daughter of our CEO Bruce Garrison, and exactly 0% qualified to lead anything more complex than a coffee order. She hadn't closed a deal since she got here 18 months ago. Never ran a campaign, never stayed past 5. But she was world-class at taking selfies during kickoff meetings she didn't even attend. People were still clapping when she clicked her heels across the tile and stepped right into the spotlight like she was hosting her own show. "Excuse me, everyone," she said, loud and sharp, not even glancing at the note in her hand. "There's been a slight change to today's announcement." The room went quiet. Her voice had that fake, sweet tone you hear right before someone tries to sell you a vacation timeshare. After further review, she continued, "We've decided the senior manager role in strategy will require additional tenure. Marcus will now transition to a coordinator-level support position instead." My ears started buzzing. I blinked, thinking maybe I'd misheard her. I hadn't. She was smiling like she'd just handed out holiday bonuses, not yanked a promotion out from under someone mid-ceremony. "Don't worry, folks. Refreshments are still available in the lounge," she added. "I have a call with our European partners in 10 minutes. Her partners. The same ones I'd been cultivating relationships with for 3 years, flying overseas on my own dime twice just to build trust and understanding. I stood there, certificate still in my hands, like some rookie at his first company retreat. The applause had died. The room cleared out fast. Alex Rodriguez, one of my team leads, reached toward my arm. I stepped back before she could make contact. I wasn't going to crack. Not in front of them, especially not in front of Riley. I walked out before anyone touched those refreshments. That moment was supposed to be the validation of everything I'd built. Instead, it was my introduction to the new rules of corporate advancement. What Riley didn't understand was this. She just awakened something in the wrong person. Back in 1998, when I started in this business, promotions were earned through results. You delivered projects on time, under budget, with measurable impact. You built expertise through experience, not through LinkedIn connections and business school buzzwords. I'd climbed from analyst to senior analyst to manager to project lead, one achievement at a time. The corporate world had changed around me. Suddenly, having the right image mattered more than having the right answers. Being photogenic for company newsletters carried more weight than being reliable during crises. Fresh perspectives trumped proven track records. But here's what 22 years teaches you that business school doesn't. Patience is power. When younger competitors rush forward, veterans who know how to wait usually win. I walked straight to HR without sitting down. Told the receptionist I need to speak with Greg Palmer. She gave me that tight smile like I'd interrupted her online shopping. "Do you have an appointment?" "I don't need one." I was just demoted in front of 50 people. I think that qualifies as urgent. Greg appeared a minute later wearing that expression, HR people perfect in training. Part funeral director, part hostage negotiator. "Marcus, come in." We sat across from each other in that artificially warm little office with the motivational poster about teamwork slowly peeling off the wall behind him. I didn't let him control the conversation. "Why was I demoted?" I asked directly. He cleared his throat. "Leadership reevaluated your fit for the expanded role. They've determined that, no, Greg. I'm asking you specifically why I was demoted." He shifted uncomfortably, looked down at his notebook like it contained magical solutions. Then he sighed. "Look, Marcus, it's Riley. She's the CEO's daughter. This is how things work around here." That was it. No corporate doublespeak, no performance improvement nonsense, just the unvarnished truth, delivered like a brick to the face. I stood up slowly. "Thanks for being honest." As I walked out, the full weight settled on me. 22 years of building expertise, cultivating relationships, delivering results, all of it meaningless because Riley had a last name that came with automatic authority. The elevator ride down was silent. My phone buzzed halfway between floors. Text from Alex. She just sent an email. She's taking over your Europe expansion project. Says she'll handle it personally going forward. My hands went cold. That project contained everything I developed over 6 months of research. Market analysis, regulatory compliance strategies, post-Brexit trade optimization, GDPR alignment protocols. The breakthrough I'd discovered about early filing deadlines that could save the company 6 figures in the first quarter alone. She was planning to present it all like she'd developed it during her morning coffee. When I reached my desk, I stopped. She was sitting in my chair, not even pretending subtlety. Just logged into my profile like she paid for the equipment. I need your final project files, she said without looking up. Everything current is in the shared drive, I told her, knowing the shared version was outdated. Missing the revised EU timeline and the new compliance requirements I'd uncovered just 2 days earlier. She stood up, smoothing her designer blazer like this was routine business. Perfect, I'll take it from here. You can start organizing your new workspace. Coordinator section, right? I didn't respond. Just watched her like she was some fictional villain who'd stepped out of a television screen. She smiled and walked toward the glass conference room like she'd just scored the winning touchdown. My phone buzzed again. Email from Veronica Mueller, European Trade Commission. Vote scheduled for next Tuesday, not Q1 as originally planned. If your team wants the tax optimization benefit, you have 8 days to file proper documentation. 8 days. If that vote happened without proper preparation, the window would close and the company would lose millions in potential savings. I looked through the glass wall and watched Riley gesturing enthusiastically, walking someone through my slides. She was completely absorbed in the performance, probably understood less than half the content, but her body language suggested she considered herself the smartest person in the building. I could have contacted Bruce directly, could have escalated to the board, could have created a scene right there in the open workspace. Instead, I leaned against the filing cabinet, made eye contact with her through the glass, and smiled back. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to stop her. Let her walk into that boardroom with outdated information. Let her take credit for work she didn't understand. Let her fly blind into a situation that required real expertise. But first, I needed to go home and face my family. The drive to our house in Brookfield took 35 minutes in traffic. Same suburban street I'd been driving down for 12 years. Same mortgage payment due in 2 weeks. Same financial pressures that made this promotion essential rather than just nice to have. Sarah was in the kitchen when I walked in, grading papers at the counter. High school English teacher for 16 years. Steady income, but nothing that would cover private college tuition or unexpected emergencies. She looked up when I came through the door. "How'd it go?" she asked, smile already forming. I stood there for a moment, trying to figure out how to explain corporate nepotism to someone who worked in a merit-based profession. There was a complication. Her smile faded. What kind of complication? The CEO's daughter decided she wanted the position instead. So they gave it to her. Sarah set down her red pen. They can't just do that. You had the promotion. They announced it. Apparently they can do whatever they want. She was quiet for a few seconds, processing. Then, what does this mean for Tyler's college situation? Tyler, our 16-year-old, had been accepted to 3 schools. State university with partial scholarship, private college with no financial aid, and his dream school that would cost $45,000 a year. Without the promotion salary bump, his dream school became impossible. We'll figure it out, I told her. Tyler's smart enough to succeed anywhere. But I could see the worry in her eyes. 20 years of marriage teaches you to read between the lines. She was calculating mortgage payments, Emma's orthodontist bills, car repairs, and college costs. The coordinator's salary wouldn't cover everything comfortably. "Did you talk to Bruce?" she asked. "You two have been friends for years." Bruce Garrison and I went back 15 years. We'd worked together when he was VP of operations and I was a project manager. Played golf maybe twice a month. Grabbed drinks after particularly brutal quarterly reviews. I thought that relationship meant something. "I'll handle it," I said, though I wasn't sure how yet. Emma bounced into the kitchen, 13 years old and completely oblivious to adult financial stress. "Dad, can you help me with my history project? It's about corporate monopolies in the early 1900s. I almost laughed at the irony. "Sure, sweetheart." Corporate monopolies are something I'm becoming an expert on. That evening, I stayed late at the office. Not because I had work to do, but because I wanted to observe. By 8 o'clock, the floor was nearly empty. Just me and Riley, who was in the glass conference room rehearsing for tomorrow's presentation like she was auditioning for a business reality show. Watching her practice was painful. She clicked through my slides, stumbling over technical terminology she clearly didn't understand. Every few minutes, she'd stop, adjust her blazer, and repeat some buzzword like it was a magical incantation. Scalability, cross-platform integration, digital transformation, synergistic optimization. She sounded like someone who'd memorized a business dictionary but never actually used any of the concepts in real situations. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. "Marcus," Bruce Garrison said. I wanted to call personally about today's announcement. I leaned back in my chair. "I appreciate that. I know this isn't what you expected," he continued, like he wasn't the person who had approved every personnel decision. "But Riley's shown real initiative lately. She's ready for expanded responsibilities." Initiative, that was his word for nepotism. "You're still a crucial part of this organization," he went on. "This coordinator role will give you opportunities to develop different skill sets. 22 years of proven skill sets apparently insufficient for advancement." "I understand the business decision," I said carefully. "You're a team player, Marcus. That's always been your strength. Thanks for being flexible about this transition." Then he hung up. Less than 5 minutes to dismiss 2 decades of professional relationship. Not, "How are you processing this?" Not, "Let's discuss your concerns." Just corporate politeness and goodbye. That conversation clarified something important for me. Personal relationships in corporate America exist only as long as they don't conflict with family interests. Bruce would sacrifice our friendship without hesitation to advance his daughter's career. 10 minutes later, Riley emerged from the conference room and walked over to my desk, heels clicking against the tile like a countdown timer. "Quick question, Marcus," she said. "Slide 22, the EU vote timeline. Any recent updates on that schedule?" This was the moment. I could tell her the truth about the accelerated timeline. I could save the company from potential embarrassment. I could protect a project I'd spent months developing. Instead, I looked directly at her and said, "No changes. Still scheduled for the first quarter next year. March time frame minimum." "Perfect," she said, practically glowing. "Thanks for confirming. You've always been so thorough with details." She turned and walked away, humming some pop song like her professional future was already secured. I sat there completely calm, because that small lie I'd just told her was the critical detail she needed and didn't possess. Slide 22 was the foundation of the entire proposal. The difference between a successful presentation and a complete disaster. She didn't know the vote was happening next Tuesday. She didn't realize she was walking into a room full of international investors who were already aware of the accelerated timeline. She assumed she was prepared, untouchable, destined for success. Riley thought I'd absorbed the demotion quietly and moved on, just like always. She had no concept of what was about to happen. For the first time since that morning's humiliation, I felt something that wasn't anger or frustration. I felt strategic confidence, the kind that comes from 22 years of experience and the patience to wait for the right moment. By 9:30, Riley packed up her things and headed for the exit. "Wish me luck tomorrow," she called out as she passed my desk. I gave her a friendly wave without looking up from my computer screen. After she left, I walked through the empty office space, past the glass conference room where she'd been practicing all evening. My presentation still glowed on the wall screen, slide 22 prominently displayed. I didn't celebrate, didn't smile, just turned off the lights and headed home to my family. Tomorrow, Riley would enter that boardroom with complete confidence, rehearse talking points, and critically flawed information. And I'd be sitting in the back row watching 22 years of experience prove its value. The next morning, I took my seat in the back corner of the executive conference room. No nameplate, no laptop, no official role in the meeting. Just a black notebook and a pen I never planned to use. Henrik Larsson was already there with his team from Nordic Investment Partners, the firm that would either approve or reject our European expansion proposal. 3 sharp-suited advisors sat beside him, coffee cups in hand, expressions neutral. These weren't people who tolerated incompetence or wasted time. Across from them sat our full board of directors, minus Bruce, who had apparently decided his calendar was too busy for his daughter's presentation. Smart move, considering what was about to happen. At exactly 9:15, 5 minutes late as usual, Riley clicked into the room. Full power walk, designer heels echoing, lipstick perfect. She looked like she was hosting a product launch instead of walking into what would become a professional execution. "Thank you all for being here," she announced, voice bright with confidence. "Let's dive right into this exciting opportunity." She clicked to the first slide. My title page unchanged. Started reading from my executive summary word for word, as if she'd written every sentence herself. For the first 15 minutes, everything went smoothly. She navigated through the market analysis I'd developed, smiled during the competitive overview section, threw in buzzwords when board members nodded approvingly. When someone asked about regulatory compliance frameworks, she deflected professionally. Another question about cross-border logistics got a similarly evasive but confident response. Henrik listened without reaction. His team took notes. No one seemed particularly impressed, but no one appeared concerned either. Then Riley reached slide 22. Our timeline anticipates the EU regulatory vote occurring in the first quarter next year, she said with complete assurance. This gives us ample preparation time for proper documentation and compliance protocols. Henrik's pen stopped moving. He looked up from his notes for the first time during the presentation. Interesting timeline, he said calmly. Can you clarify which specific vote you're referencing? Riley blinked, momentarily caught off guard. The standard regulatory approval process. Q1 calendar, as outlined in our research. I see. Henrik leaned forward slightly. Because according to the European Trade Commission, that vote is scheduled for this Tuesday, 4 days from now. The silence that followed felt like a physical weight pressing down on the room. Riley's confident smile flickered. We have reliable intelligence indicating... We are the intelligence, Henrik interrupted, his voice still calm but carrying new authority. My team has been tracking this regulatory change for 6 months. The board members started shifting in their seats. Phones appeared. Notebooks opened to fresh pages. One of Henrik's advisors tapped his tablet and turned the screen toward the room, displaying an official EU Commission notice with dates and timestamps clearly visible. Riley stared at the evidence like it might change if she looked hard enough. Her prepared talking points had evaporated. The confidence that had carried her through 18 months of unearned advancement was dissolving in real time. Perhaps there's been some miscommunication about the schedule, she offered weakly. Perhaps, Henrik replied, though his tone suggested he didn't believe miscommunication was the issue. Unfortunately, this timeline error undermines the entire proposal's viability. Someone in the room coughed. Someone else whispered to their neighbor. Henrik closed his notebook deliberately and said 4 words that ended Riley's presentation. We'll need to reconsider. The rest of the meeting unraveled like a poorly constructed sweater. Riley stumbled through sections she clearly hadn't studied, skipped entire segments when questions became too technical, completely fumbled an inquiry about subsidiary tax implications that was explicitly detailed in my original notes. Her voice began shaking. The artificial confidence that had defined her professional persona melted away layer by layer, revealing someone who had never actually been tested under pressure. I sat perfectly still, watching the collapse with the same detached interest you'd have observing a predictable weather pattern. Not surprised, not vengeful, just patient. When the room finally cleared, whispers had already begun. Was that her research? Who actually prepared this analysis? Didn't Marcus develop the European strategy? No one approached me directly, but I felt eyes lingering longer than usual as people filed out. Connections were being made. Dots were being connected. Alex appeared beside my chair and discreetly placed a manila folder on the table. Complete original documentation, she said quietly. In case anyone asks who actually did the work, the folder contained my genuine research. Updated, time-stamped, comprehensive, and bulletproof. I slipped it into my briefcase. Within an hour, the corporate rumor network was operating at full capacity. Henrik's team had gone silent. Reconsidering the partnership became the official diplomatic language. The board was reviewing all aspects of the proposal. Nobody could articulate exactly what had gone wrong, but everyone sensed the shift. Something fundamental had broken, and the person with the knowledge to fix it had been sitting in the back row, completely ignored. That situation wouldn't last long. By 1:30, Greg Palmer appeared at my desk. Marcus, could you join us in conference room A? He didn't elaborate, but his expression told me everything. This wasn't a routine check-in. I followed him down the hallway to the same room where Riley had failed so spectacularly just hours earlier. The energy was completely different now. Focused, urgent, serious. Henrik sat at the conference table with both of his senior advisors. Our entire board occupied one side of the room. At the head sat Beverly Morgan, board chairwoman, known for her direct communication style and zero tolerance for corporate games. Bruce Garrison was present this time, though he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Sweat stains were visible on his shirt collar despite the aggressive air conditioning. Riley was notably absent. Henrik spoke first, his tone professional but pointed. Marcus, were you aware of the actual EU vote timeline? Yes, I replied simply. Why wasn't this information included in today's presentation? Because I was removed from the project before I could provide updates to the documentation. That statement landed like a physical blow. Bruce studied the table surface like it contained fascinating patterns. The board members exchanged glances that communicated volumes without words. I reached into my briefcase and placed the manila folder on the conference table. This contains the complete analysis. Original research, current vote timeline, regulatory modifications, and implementation strategies for early market entry. Beverly gestured for me to continue. For the next 90 minutes, I walked them through everything Riley had misunderstood or ignored. The accelerated filing requirements, the updated GDPR compliance protocols, the post-Brexit documentation changes, the tax optimization opportunities that were available only with proper timing. Henrik's team asked sharp, detailed questions. I answered each one without hesitation. This wasn't last-minute preparation or desperate improvisation. This was 22 years of expertise backed by months of careful research and relationship building. Bruce remained silent throughout the entire session, jaw clenched, staring at nothing. When I finished, Henrik reviewed the final summary pages. This analysis would have prevented significant financial exposure, he said, and it identifies opportunities we hadn't considered. Yes, I confirmed, and those opportunities are still available if we move quickly. The room fell silent. Beverly tapped her pen against her legal pad, thinking. Would you be willing to lead this project directly? She asked. Absolutely, I said without hesitation. Bruce finally found his voice. Riley has already been briefed on. Beverly cut him off with a look that could freeze water. Marcus will be taking over this project immediately. Full authority, direct board oversight. Bruce's face went pale, but he didn't argue further. The room cleared except for Beverly, Henrik, and me. Beverly spoke first. What do you need to salvage this situation? 48 hours, I said. My team can prepare revised documentation and file before the Tuesday deadline. We'll need executive authorization for expedited processing. Henrik nodded. My firm can facilitate the regulatory coordination on the European side. Done, Beverly said. Whatever resources you need. I walked out of that conference room carrying something I hadn't held in years. Complete professional authority with institutional backing. Not because of family connections or political maneuvering, but because I was the only person who actually understood what needed to happen. By 4 o'clock, word had traveled through the office. Riley was nowhere to be seen. Bruce had left early, claiming a family emergency. Greg Palmer from HR was fielding whispered conversations all afternoon. I called Sarah from my desk. How would you feel about Tyler applying to his first choice school? What do you mean? She asked. I mean, we can afford the tuition. Full price, 4 years, whatever he needs. Silence on the other end. Then, what happened today? 22 years of experience finally proved its worth. That evening, I stayed late to coordinate with Henrik's team and prepare documentation for emergency filing. Alex worked beside me, handling operational details with the efficiency that had made her indispensable over the past 3 years. You knew this would happen, she said around 8 o'clock. I knew she wasn't prepared for the complexity, I replied. The rest was just mathematics. At 9:15, my phone buzzed. Text from an international number I didn't recognize. This is Riley. Just wanted to say congratulations on the promotion. I underestimated your capabilities. Won't happen again. I read the message twice, then deleted it without responding. Some lessons don't require acknowledgement. 6 weeks later, our European expansion was ahead of schedule and under budget. The regulatory filing had been approved within days of submission. Henrik's firm committed to a 3-year partnership with expanded investment parameters. The tax optimization strategies I'd developed were saving the company approximately $800,000 annually. Beverly called me into her office on a Friday afternoon. The board has been discussing your performance. I waited. We're creating a new position. Vice President of International Strategy. Direct report to the board, full budget authority, equity participation. Interested? What's the timeline? Effective Monday. Your salary doubles, plus performance bonuses tied to expansion results. I thought about Tyler's college acceptance letter, Emma's upcoming high school expenses, the mortgage that would be completely manageable now, Sarah's relief when she realized we weren't facing financial uncertainty anymore. I accept. One more thing, Beverly said. Bruce Garrison submitted his resignation this morning. Early retirement, effective immediately. Board accepted it unanimously. I nodded but didn't comment. Some consequences create themselves. That weekend, I took Tyler and Emma out for dinner at the restaurant we'd always considered too expensive for regular family meals. Tyler ordered the steak. Emma got dessert before finishing her main course. Sarah smiled more than she had in months. Dad, Tyler said as we walked to the car, my guidance counselor says the private school acceptance is still available if I confirm by Monday. What do you think about that? I asked. I think I'd like to try it. If we can afford it. We can afford it. Emma hugged my arm. Does this mean we're rich now? It means we're secure, I told her. There's a difference. Monday morning, I moved into the corner office that had been Bruce's for 8 years. Same view of the city, same conference table where I'd been demoted and then vindicated within 6 weeks. The nameplate outside read Marcus Webb, Vice President of International Strategy. Henrik visited that afternoon. We walked through the office together, past the cubicles where younger employees were handling tasks I'd once managed myself. You've built something solid here, he said. I just stopped accepting less than I was worth. He smiled. In my experience, that's the hardest lesson for capable people to learn. By the end of my first quarter as VP, we'd exceeded every projection on the books. European revenue had tripled. Our compliance ratings went from questionable to industry-leading. The regulatory relationships I'd cultivated were generating opportunities in markets we hadn't even considered previously. I started getting calls from competitor firms, headhunters with offers that would have seemed impossible 2 years earlier. Companies wanting to hire the guy who'd turned around a failing international expansion in 6 weeks. I wasn't interested in jumping ship. I'd built something here that was finally mine. One morning, about 4 months after the promotion, I was reviewing quarterly reports when Alex knocked on my office door. There's someone here to see you, she said. No appointment, but she says it's important. A young woman walked in, 26, maybe 27 years old, dressed professionally but nervous. Mr. Webb, I'm Jennifer Martinez. I just graduated from business school and I've been following your work on the European expansion project. I know you probably don't have openings, but I wanted to ask if you might consider mentoring someone who's serious about learning international strategy. I studied her for a moment. She reminded me of myself 25 years ago. Eager, qualified, willing to work for opportunities rather than expecting them as entitlements. What makes you think you're ready for this field? I asked. I'm not ready, she said honestly, but I'm willing to put in whatever time it takes to become ready. I want to learn from someone who actually knows what they're doing. I smiled. Have a seat. Let's talk about what real international strategy work involves. Because here's what I learned from everything that happened. Merit doesn't always win immediately, but it usually wins eventually. Experience beats enthusiasm when the stakes are real. And sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting elaborate schemes. Sometimes it's just being so competent that incompetence destroys itself. I never schemed against Riley. I never sabotaged her presentation or undermined her authority. I just stepped aside and let 22 years of corporate experience prove what it was worth. The promotion I thought I'd lost was nothing compared to what I actually gained. Not just the title or the salary, but the recognition that comes when people finally understand what you've been capable of all along. I stayed quiet, stayed patient, and let the work speak for itself. And when the dust settled, I was still standing exactly where I belonged.